Hello and welcome to Living Life Victoriously, a podcast brought to you by Nappanee First Brethren Church. Today, in our episode, we're going to focus on discipleship, specifically discipling children and youth. And I will be interviewing my co-host, Pastor Howie, and we will look at what it looks like at NFBC to disciple our children and what it looks like to minister to kids. Well, Pastor Howie, we are here talking about your area of expertise.
Okay.
Kids. Pastor Howie is the pastor of family ministries here at NFBC, and we believe in a holistic approach to discipleship at NFBC, and that includes discipling adults and children. And when we talk about adults and children, we're really talking about the family structure.
Yeah.
And some churches, they tend to focus on adults, and the children ministry seems to be not the main focus. While other churches tend to focus on the children's ministry, and we feel like the adults' discipleship is what suffers. But we, as a church, we feel like there needs to be both. But for our focus today, we're going to focus on children and youth. Pastor Howie will be speaking primarily to that demographic. So, Pastor Howie, let's begin with just sharing your journey over the years in ministry in this area.
Okay. Well, being in ministry for 35 plus years, it really goes back to when I was a kid, and individuals within our church were willing to invest in me, give me opportunities both in leadership and ministry. And so that's where it all starts. So that holistic aspect is they realize the people at the church that I grew up in that we need to pour into the kids. I remember my senior pastor growing up, and it would always frustrate me. He could take me to McDonald's and I would ask him a question and he would follow up with a question. And it was that sharpening, I guess, between the two of us. And it always frustrated me. And then I realized what he was doing later on in life. And so he never gave me the answer. He always made me search for the answer with his guidance. And it was always amazing how people were able to allow me to have the experiences and always made me think that I came up with the idea. And so they were always just pouring into the younger generation, the generation behind, or two generations behind. And so in all that, I knew one day ministry was the possibility. I was just even looking at a letter today from 1990, June of, it was September of 1990, of just welcome to the ministry from an individual. And ever since then, it's always been for me the youth and the children. And I think at Nappanee First Brethren, it's I think one of the first chances and moments or opportunities that it's family, and it's not just the kids or the youth. I've done the kids and the youth, but it's the family. And it really, for Nappanee First Brethren, we developed this orangeology that we've developed from Rethink and Orange Conference, that it is the light of the church, and which is yellow, and red, the heart of the family. So when you incorporate all that, you get orange. Yeah, that's, after doing it 35 years, I think I've got it somewhat figured out, but it's just a very fast-paced society anymore. So as soon as you get things figured out, it changes on you.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things that I really love about our church is our kids, they love to be here.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I mean, we make church fun. I know that the kids just absolutely adore you and enjoy being around you. And I always try to bribe them with candy in my office. That the kids feel comfortable coming. When the kids feel comfortable going and just hanging out with their pastors, and that's such a blessing. And we are very blessed here at NFBC to have something good going.
Yeah, I've always made the comment of until people within the church sometimes want to help out with the youth or mentor the youth and stuff like that, but until they see you and get to know you and stuff like that, then you have that opportunity. So I think what we do, just you having the candy and me having a shelf of toys, kids are always just willing to welcome, and we're not as threatening. And I even experienced it with one of the teenagers just recently, that they felt extremely comfortable sharing their thoughts, their struggles, and in their journey. So
you have to get on their level and relate to them, and they have to see you.
I do that very well. I do that very well.
I do too. So I think we're both sometimes considered big kids ourselves.
Yeah.
But hey. So what does children and youth ministry look like here at NFBC?
Well, the children's ministry, we do Wednesday nights from 6:15 to 7:30 for the kids, and that's 5th grade and younger. And I have a grandson who's 2, and I always try to encourage, just bring them. If it lasts, I know it's a journey to get them in the car seat, to journey here, get them out, acclimate them and everything. But there's no cutoff age. We have, parents have to protect their little ones because some of the bigger ones are playing ball. But, so Wednesday night is Kids Quest FX, which is the family experience. And that's what we've wanted to do here all along, is make sure that the family is always on board and interacting, knowing what their kids are talking about. The youth ministry, we have Bible studies on Wednesday night, same night. We start at the same time, about 6:15, and we go till 7, because we have several of our kids on the worship team. So we got a break for them so they can go minister elsewhere, which is really cool. And I really appreciate the worship team just really embracing the younger ones. And I know that there are even younger ones that will be coming up that I am super excited to get them up on stage and showing their talents and skills. Yeah. And so that's what Wednesday evening looks like. And then we have Sunday, we have our discipleship hour, which is traditional Sunday school. But our discipleship hour is where, the teachers are just pouring in a little bit smaller groups, just pouring into the kids on the curriculum that we have chosen. So one of the things that I want to kind of get to is why we do what we do. And it goes all the way back to Deuteronomy 6. And starting at verse 4, it says, "And you must commit yourself wholeheartedly to these commands I am giving you today. Repeat them again," and this is where the rubber meets the road, I would say. "Remember them again and again to your children. Talk to them when you're at home, when you're away on a journey, when you're lying down, and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hand as a reminder. Wear them on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your house, on your gates." And I think you talked about that some weeks ago. You preached on that, about who had the bigger box that they would wrap around their wrists and stuff. And so that whole aspect is we want to be able to create a rhythm with our families that the kids would hopefully come to recognize. Maybe they won't recognize it, but we want the parents to take mental note. So you have the drive time. I just kind of wrote them down of what we look like. Or mealtime. Mealtime is always that formal time. We talk about the day. We talk about what's going on in our lives, and we all experience it in different aspects, in different ways. Right. But I don't think it registers like, that's why mealtime with family is so important. Sit down and that's talking. And that from the parents to the students, it's the teacher and the parents teaching them how to digest the day, how to work it out. The other time is the drive time. That's the informal time. Don't forget your lunch. Don't forget to call me when you're done. Don't forget, we have those conversations, and that's just the friend. The parents play that friend role in that time. So we have the meal time, we have the drive time, we have bedtime. And once I started learning about this passage, especially with one of our children, bedtime was the deepest of deepest conversations.
Yeah, one of my children were just like that.
Yeah,
they didn't want to talk until it was time for bed.
Right. And it's just like, dude, I want to go to bed, but, chat away. And it really was the most intimate time of that. And that's the counselor in us.
Right.
Is when they're divulging, it's that intimate time. And then morning, it's the getting up, encouraging them, and you're kind of the coach. You got this test today, or don't worry about the tryouts. Don't worry. It's those things. Whenever you're having the meal, the driving, bedtime, even getting up and getting ready for the day, those are all prime opportunities to be pouring into our kids. And so that's part of the rhythm. We as a church, on an average, we will spend about 40 hours a year being able to invest into our own children, or the children within this congregation. Parents have over 3,000 hours of influence on their children. So it doesn't do us as leaders any good just to teach the kids, teach the parents in separate areas. It needs to be an all-encompassing thing. So, when we look at that Deuteronomy 6, starting at 4, and we know, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. I think a lot of us remember Jesus saying that when they're trying to pinpoint Jesus to what's the most important.
Right.
So that's where it dives into, or is tethered.
And talking about, the opportune times you have to pour into your children. I mean, children, they see that. They see that when you are intentional in spending time with them, it shows not only that you love them, but you value them, that you respect them. And that's one of the things that we, I believe, as a church do so well, is that our children feel important. They don't feel like church is just for the adults. They feel like it's for them. It helps them to begin to own their own relationship with the Lord. It also helps them to understand that, you're never too young to minister. And just like you're never too old to minister to someone. I mean, I've heard stories of children in our church that first grade, kindergarten, that they actually, because of the principles that are taught at church and in their youth program, they're actually ministering to other kids at school, and that's really, really important, because it's the future of not only the church, but it's the future hope of our society. Is raising up good young Christian boys and girls.
So there's a group of 2 adults and 4 youth that are going to on a mission trip this summer down to southern Arizona, to a Native American reservation nation. And we're going through a book, Radical Like Jesus, from Greg Stier. And one of the stories that he talked about was a 5th grader who was in class, and they're learning how to debate. And the girl was a solid Christian, and she wanted to talk about creation, or that was her point of creation. And he had an atheist kid who was evolution. And they debated back and forth, and she presented the gospel in such a beautiful way, and stood her ground on the creation story. And when she was all done, the other kids just kind of mocked her, and she went out to get her composure. She kind of lost it. And when the teacher went out, she was kneeling down, praying in her Bible, not because she was embarrassed, but she was so heartbroken that her classmates did not believe in God like she did.
Right.
So it was, and she ended up becoming a missionary in Thailand, I think, or something like that. But it was even the fifth grader has such a ministry mindset. It can have a ministry mindset.
Oh, yeah.
And a ministry heart.
Yeah. 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 And that's awesome. That's awesome to be able to see that in your children. I mean, I think that's what we all want for our children.
Yeah.
Is that type of heart.
Yep.
What about curriculum? What is some curriculum that we use here at NFBC?
Curriculum is the curriculum is the dirty pig of the whole ministry. You know, there's so many out there, but they're flavored for certain denominations, or they're so expensive, and you know it's good. You pass out all the papers and everything to the students, and then it's all left behind after class, and it's frustrating. But you got to do something. So for the children, for the fifth grade down to the nursery, we use Grow curriculum. And the reason we like Grow curriculum is because we can use it during our discipleship hour. We can use it for junior church, which is halfway through the worship service. Kids are dismissed from age 3 to kindergarten, and they go and have junior church, you know. And we have Wednesday night. And we don't want kids to know 3 different lessons or 4 different lessons. And, you know, we don't. We like at least some sort of consistency. So some of the curriculum that we've tried to use in the past was really good curriculum, but it didn't meet, you know, we would have to buy curriculum for the junior church, for the discipleship hour, for Wednesday night. And with the Grow curriculum, we're able to split it out into different ways that they're learning the same story and they're getting it.
Right.
You know, they're getting it hammered to them every week, 3 different times possibly. And so that's why we used that. For the youth, one of the things that I've come to realize is someone made a comment a few years ago that kids just don't know the Bible stories. And I was like, oh, I think they know the Bible stories. And as I looked at what I've done on Wednesday evening or even for the discipleship hour, it's very topical. And so we take a part of the story and we take out the topic or the attitude or the feeling or something like that. But we don't necessarily look at that entire storyline. And so one of the things that I've done in the last few years is just, we've been going through the book of Matthew and the book of John, and they're liking it. It's not the games and everything else. I try to incorporate some of the games just to keep it interesting. For the foot washing, Jesus washing each other's feet, we washed each other's sneakers.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's something different, something unique, and they'll remember it. And as we were reading the story later on, I heard some of the kids talking about, oh yeah, the sneakers, yeah, that's right. You know, so they remember, and they remember the story. And so what we're going to do for the next 2 years is go through Project 52 on Wednesday nights, which is just 52 stories of the Bible from time to revive. And we're going to go through those and just learn the stories and where was God and where was Jesus in all those stories. So
yeah,
that's what we're going to be doing.
That's cool. That's cool. What about upcoming events here or summer plans for the ministry?
Yeah.
NFBC?
I know that there's a lot of denominations, a lot of churches, they don't take a hiatus. You know, they go all year long, and that's great. In 35 years, it just seems to me like once mid-May hits, it's shut down. And when we're considered a big small church, a congregation of 200 or so. It's bigger within our denomination, but it's smaller. It's not the 600 or 1,000 type church.
Right.
And so things just shut down, or at least slow down from mid-May till August, when school starts back up. So one of the things that the Kids Quest does is, like this year, May 31st, they'll have their kids carnival in the back.
Right.
And we've had hundreds of people coming through.
I was just thinking today, how many we had last year? I think we're somewhere around 500.
The first year we had, I think we had about 100 or something like that. Last year, maybe like 250.
Okay.
But it's still, you know, when you're a congregation of 200,
Right.
and you have 250 coming through, it's a little mind blowing. It's mainly just to show the community we're a friendly church. We care about them. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, we had a family that came through, and they just started pouring out of the family struggles that they're dealing with I believe it was some sort of addictions. And yeah, it was just for someone just to start pouring out like that was huge. And then they have community night once a month in June, July, and August. And that's just a time where they get together for 2 hours and they have meal time. It's the formal, it's the teaching, you know, sit down and eat. People bring a meal to the event, and they just share, and they just are family together. For the youth, what we try to do is just, I usually try and take that time as the fifth graders come up, just to incorporate them so they kind of get used to everybody. They get used to the new ones that are coming up.
Right.
So we're going to do pickleball every Wednesday, or most Wednesdays. In Warsaw, there's a water ski show that's on most Sundays.
Yes.
And so I think we're going to go down there, and, you know, mission trip I talked about. I always like to provide an opportunity for, especially if they're in their high school years, junior high and into high school, is some sort of domestic mission trip, something we can do within the states, and an international mission trip. And we were able to provide that both these years with some of the adults going down to Argentina. Right. Some of our older youth have hopped onto that, and they just thoroughly enjoy it. And so I'm happy that they're able to experience those type of commitments. And we have our National Youth Conference. This is the first time in 35 years that we don't have anyone going, because it falls into the week of our 4-H fair for the county, right? Which is in the top 3 of our country.
Yeah, and most of our kids are involved in it.
Yeah. So that really has wiped our kids out for that. But last year we had 22 of us that were going.
Right.
When you go from 22 to 0, it's heartbreaking, but I understand it. So.
Yeah. So things look different in the summer months. I mean, we kind of have like the kickoff into the summer with our carnival. Then you have the community nights, and then you're going to be working with the teenagers and kind of doing some bonding type stuff. And then we kind of kick back into gear with Splash Bash. Then leads us back in, and that's usually in August, right? If I remember, August or September? Or?
Yeah, toward the end of August. I think it's right before Labor Day.
Yeah. And then our normal curriculum and normal discipleship for our all of our youth and all of our kids on Sundays as well.
Yeah,
so that continues.
Yeah, and in the summer, the week between the 4th of July and at Christmas time, those 2 weeks we have discipleship sabbatical, where we just don't have discipleship time. It stemmed from, at the very beginning, a lot of the factories around here would shut down those 2 weeks, and that was their only vacation time. Right. So people just went on vacations, and the attendance gets real low. And so we've just have done that for many years of just the discipleship. It gives teachers just to kind of take a nice deep breath and yeah.
Biblically, we're practicing what it means to rest.
Yeah.
And what that looks like.
Yeah.
As we close, Howie, what is it that you want to share from your heart about children and God's love for them?
Yeah, I'm always amazed by their tenderness. And I was going to say something earlier I've noticed. So in our during our worship service, we have kids that come up and adults, come up and we have flags and that's part of their act of worship. But I've noticed one section, so we have flags on both sides of the stage, and I realized that one section, especially last week when we did hymns, they were singing extra loud.
Yeah, I was just thinking that you could hear them. Amazing Grace. I mean, when you're talking about kids that are
Second, third,
Yeah.
fourth. Yeah.
you could hear them as loud as anyone else. I mean,
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I was 5 or 6 rows back, and I could hear them as they're facing away from me. I could still hear them. And yeah, don't push off the kids in the church. Give them space to learn. Give them space to do ministry, and allow them to fail. I think this should be, and it is here, but the church should be the safest place to fail,
Right.
especially with the younger ones. I can remember preaching years ago. I think it was one of the first times I preached in a nearby town, and I was just so nervous. I was either talking about Paul, and I kept saying Peter, or the other way around. It was a complete flop, and I'm sure, especially the older generation, oh, bless his heart, but I never once heard any critical verbiage come out of the people as I fumbled around and just learned how to do ministry, how to preach.
Yeah, it needs to be a safe place to be able to explore and just and I think we need to encourage that. And church should be a fun place for kids.
Yeah.
As well. I mean, I remember kind of growing up where it was that mentality of they're to be heard or seen, but not heard. And one of the things I love about our church is you hear kids and they're having fun, but the thing is they're learning. You can tell they're learning.
Yeah.
And that makes it when kids are having fun and like to be where they're at. You'll see amazing things, and it allows them to love church. It's just like when I was a school teacher for years, and when kids come into the classroom and they already don't like school, it makes it very difficult for them to learn. And once they get out of school, they don't want anything to do with learning anymore. But when they like it, it becomes a joy for their entire lifetime. They will embrace. They will have fond memories of church. They'll want to be at the church. Yeah. And when you, especially if you equip them to realize that they're important and that they can do ministry, they begin to blossom at a very, very young age, and that continues. I mean, I think that environment has been established here because we see that with a lot of our youth transitioning on to our worship team.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Living Life Victoriously, a ministry of Nappanee First Brethren Church. And we want to remind you that God wants you to live victoriously, not just for eternity, but right now as well. God bless.